The twin sons of Terian, three cast long violet shadows over the gleaming skyline of the Valhari Dominion, their strange light glinting off crystalline towers that seemed to breathe with sentient energy. Hovering transports wove silently between spires like flocks of metallic birds, and beneath it all, the ground-level chambers of the Unity Citadel pulsed with anticipation. Commander Elian Voss of Earth's Interstellar Relations Corps stood at the landing pad's edge, the air shimmering around him in waves of pressurized heat. His sleek diplomatic uniform bore the dark green insignia of Earth's delegation and emblem, seldom welcomed on Terian soil. And yet, today was different. He'd been summoned. The Dominion had sent a formal envoy request, and not just to Earth, but to him specifically. Approaching threshold in 10 seconds, the AI chimed softly in his earpiece. Proceed to designated coordinates. He strode forward, boots silent on the obsidian platform, each step measured and deliberate. Behind him, the Earth delegation held their breath. Elian had insisted on walking alone. Terian protocol demanded. Yet only those invited may enter the inner hall. The doors of living crystal parted without a sound. Inside, the chamber was a cathedral of light and geometry, its angular walls refracting the sun's glow into endless patterns. At its center hovered a dais of levitation crystal, and on it, seated in a throne that shimmered like a dream, was the High Emissary's daughter, Princess Kaelira. She was not what Elian expected. Kaelira was infamous across diplomatic networks, a reclusive figure who had turned away countless suitors and diplomats. Blinded in an orbital sabotage as a child, and bound to a biomechanical support system after a failed assassination. She was both a political figure and a living legend, but her reputation had not prepared Elian for her presence. Her skin, a translucent ivory hue with veins of iridescent blue, pulsed gently with each breath. Fine silver tendrils framed her face, and her eyes sightless, though they were glowed with a soft luminescence as they turned toward him with uncanny precision. "You are late, Commander Voss," she said, her voice melodic but cool. "Sons do not wait for Earthmen." Elian bowed slightly, hands at his sides. "My apologies, Princess Kaelira. I underestimated the speed of your planet's day cycle." A faint smile curved her lips. Humility, unexpected. She gestured, and the dais descended with a whisper of harmonics. Her throne, more of a hovering exosupport structure than a traditional seat, glided forward, flanked by two silent Valhari attendants in ceremonial armor. "I requested you," she said, coming to a halt before him. "Not your delegation. Not your admirals." You Elian nodded. "Why?" "Because you refused to play the games others did," she replied. "You condemned the assassination of my cousin publicly. Risked your own diplomatic standing to call the action unjust. That intrigues me." He blinked. "So I'm here because I told the truth." Kaelira's expression remained unreadable. "You're here because you have no reason to lie to me." Elian tilted his head. "You seem very certain of that." Her glowing eyes flicked over his face, and for a moment, Elian felt as though she saw deeper than anyone ever had, sightless, yet piercing. "I do not need sight to read intentions," she said softly, "and I have grown tired of seeing only masks." A silence stretched between them, charged, but not uncomfortable. Then she spoke again. "You will accompany me to the Eastern Territories. The border colonies have grown restless. Their faith in Dominion leadership falters, and they may look to Earth for support." Elian raised a brow. "You want me as a diplomat?" "I want you as an anchor," Kaelira corrected. "Your presence makes it harder for them to claim we act in secrecy. You're not here to speak for Earth. You're here to remind them Earth is listening." Elian considered that. "And if I refuse?" "Then I summon the Dreknari," she said, voice sharpening. "And you know what they bring?" He nodded grimly. "The Dreknari were not diplomats. They were enforcers." "I accept." Kaelira inclined her head. "Then prepare for departure. We leave at second dusk." As Elian turned to leave, her voice followed him. "And Commander," he looked back. "I do not tolerate flattery," she said. "Only truth." He smiled slightly. "Then we'll get along just fine." The transport vessel was unlike anything in Earth's fleets, grown rather than built, its hull a fusion of organic resin and crystal latticework. It responded to Kaelira's presence, its core pulsing in time with her biofrequency. As the vessel lifted off, Elian joined her in the central chamber. Unlike a cockpit, it resembled a meditation hall, circular, ringed with flowing energy conduits that sang like wind chimes. Kaelira sat in her exothrone, her arms resting on delicate supports, her eyes turned skyward. "Do you miss your world?" she asked suddenly. Elian looked out at the deepening dusk. "Sometimes, not the politics, but the oceans, yes." Kaelira's voice grew wistful. "I've never seen one. I know them only through symphonies and sense simulations." He turned to her. "When this is over, I'll show you Earth's oceans. The real ones." A pause. Then, "Promises are easy. Delivering them is not." Elian stepped closer. "I don't make promises lightly." Kaelira tilted her head. "And yet you already have." As the twin suns dipped below the crystalline peaks, casting long shadows over the border city of Viralon, the transport descended. The atmosphere here was thick with tension. Elian could feel it even before they stepped out, waiting for them. At the landing field was a line of heavily armored Valhari nobles, flanked by guards and ministers. Their faces were painted with ceremonial hues, but their eyes watched Elian with barely veiled suspicion. Kaelira descended first, floating on her throne with regal poise. Elian followed, head high. Lord Terrell, governor of Viralon, stepped forward. His voice was like sand on metal. "Highborn Kaelira, and your guest." Kaelira's tone remained calm. "Commander Elian Voss of Earth, serving as my liaison and witness." Terrell's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I was not informed of Earth's involvement." Kaelira's throne hovered inches from his. "You are informed now." The coldness in her voice left no room for argument, as they moved toward the city's inner court. Elian leaned closer. "You enjoy intimidating them." Kaelira's smile was fleeting. "They've had 20 years to underestimate me. I'm just returning the favor." That night, as Kaelira and Elian reviewed intelligence reports in a private chamber of the Viralon stronghold, the lights dimmed to simulate Earth-night cycles for Elian's comfort. Soft music Valhari ambient chords flowed through the walls. She leaned back, her exothrone adjusting to her shifting posture. "Tell me the truth, Elian. Do you think your presence here will actually help?" He met her gaze. "Yes, because it's not just about Earth's presence, it's about yours." She raised an elegant brow. "Mine. You're not what they expect. You're not fragile. You're not bitter. And you don't want domination. You want peace." She laughed softly. "Is that what you see in me?" He stepped closer. "I see someone stronger than any soldier I've fought beside." Her expression faltered, just for a moment. "Flattery?" "Again, no," he said gently. "Truth." "Silence, then," she said. "You're a strange man, Commander Voss." He smiled. "And you're a strange woman, Princess Kaelira." The moment lingered. Unspoken things hovered between them, possibility, tension, the whisper of something far more dangerous than war. Then a knock shattered the stillness. A messenger stood at the door, eyes wide. "My lady, there's been an explosion at the southern relay. The Dreknari have arrived, and they're not here to negotiate." The command chamber of the Viralon stronghold throbbed with red light as sirens howled in low, guttural pulses. The explosion at the southern relay station had not only severed power to the border outposts, it had shattered the illusion of peace. Kaelira's throne glided forward on a surge of blue light, the interface humming against her spine as she scanned the damage reports via neural uplink. Around her, Valhari ministers barked contradictory orders, their calm crumbling into confusion. Only Elian remained still. He stood just behind Kaelira, arms folded, eyes scanning the chaos, not for answers, but for intent. "Governor Terrell," Kaelira said sharply, silencing the room with the weight of her voice. "Status report, now." The governor looked pale under his ceremonial pigments. 3 dead, 12 wounded. "The southern relay hub is going to turn to glass. We believe the Dreknari sabotaged it using a cloaked detonation drone." "Belief is not confirmation," Kaelira snapped. "Have you identified the weapon's signature?" Terrell hesitated. "We cannot confirm, but the method matches Drek." Tactics used during the siege of Rohinel. Old patterns, Elian muttered, stepping forward. They want us to think it's them. Why strike just before negotiations? Kaelira's glowing eyes turned toward him. To disrupt, to frighten, or to justify more extreme actions. Terrell's voice grew strained. If the Dreknari are moving again, we must retaliate, mobilize the Citadel Guard. Activate the ether batteries. No, Kaelira cut in, sharp as a blade. That's what they want. Escalation. Silence fell. Elian looked over at her. You suspect internal sabotage. Kaelira didn't answer right away. She floated slowly to the center of the chamber, her throne adjusting as she lowered to eye level with the regional advisors. I suspect someone in this city wants to derail the talks before they begin. Terrell scoffed. You imply treason. I imply fear, she replied coldly. And fear breeds betrayal. The council murmured uneasily. Elian stepped beside her, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You think someone's feeding intel to the Dreknar? She didn't look at him, or pretending to be them, either way. This is more than diplomacy now. Later that night, the stronghold was quieter, but tension hung in the air, like smoke after battle. Elian stood on one of the glass terraces overlooking the canyon where the southern relay once stood. The blast had left a jagged scar of molten rock and vaporized soil. He heard her before she spoke. Second dusk suits you, Commander. Kaelira hovered beside him, her throne emitting a soft hum. The twin suns had dipped just low enough to bathe the valley in lavender twilight, casting shifting shadows across the broken land. He glanced at her. I should have seen this coming. None of us did. You did, Elian said, turning to her fully. You sensed the Dreknar wouldn't. Stay silent. You brought me here for a reason. She didn't deny it. I knew something would rise from the silence, but I hoped we had more time. They stood quietly for a while. The wind shifted soft, electric, full of static charged from distant storms. Kaelira's silver strands fluttered like threads of light in the air. Do you trust them? Elian asked. Your counsel. I trust their ambition, she replied. Which means I trust them only when it serves them not to betray me. Elian chuckled without humor. Sounds like Earth politics. No, Kaelira said softly. This is older. In the Dominion, betrayal isn't scandal, it's tradition. He turned toward her. Then why fight for them? Her answer was quiet. Because someone has to show them there's another way. She turned her head, blind eyes somehow still meeting his. And perhaps I wanted to see if someone like you could believe in me, when my own people struggle too. Elian stepped closer. I already do. She smiled, faintly. Then stay by my side tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere. Morning came with unnatural stillness. Even the wind over the canyons seemed to hold its breath. Kaelira and Elian stood at the outer forum, waiting for the Dreknar envoy. Their guards stood rigid in ceremonial formation. But Elian noticed that most eyes were on him. Not the Princess Kaelira noticed too. Earth has never stood so close to the center of Valhari politics, she murmured. They're watching every breath you take. Then I'll breathe well. He looked at her throne's leak, humming softly. Her body held in place by a net of living circuitry in motion crystal. You look like a goddess, he said, without thought. She blinked. I look like a cripple in armor. He shook his head. No. You look like a warrior who commands a world with her words. A faint tremor ran through her, an emotional note in her posture he'd not seen before. And you, she said finally, sound like a man who's going to get me into trouble. He smiled. I prefer to call it mutual danger. Then came the horns. The Dreknari envoy ship descended, not in silence, but in song, a strange harmonic broadcast that vibrated the very stone. The vessel resembled a creature from some ancient ocean, a fusion of armor and flesh and light. Kaelira's throne rose slightly. Elian stepped forward at her side. Out came the Dreknari ambassador. Drael. His body was encased in living armor that shimmered with pale fire, his eyes two slits of orange flame. He moved with predatory grace, and behind him, 6 blade-back honor guards advanced in perfect rhythm. He stopped before them, bowing not out of respect, but to fulfill a requirement. Princess Kaelira, of the Valhari Dominion, His voice rasped like volcanic ash. And the human Elian Voss, Ambassador Draio Kaelira, replied, her tone even, unshaken. You've made strange choices. A human consort. An advisor, she corrected. I see. He must be exceptional. Elian stepped forward. I'm fluent in 6 interstellar trade dialects, trained in de-escalation diplomacy, and I've survived 14 combat deployments. I'm exceptional enough. Drell's mouth curled in a smile that wasn't a smile. So bold. Tell me, princess, is he also here to protect you from your own kind? Kaelira's voice was like frost. He's here to protect my people from themselves, if need be, Drell chuckled. Good, you'll need him. The galaxy is changing. He gestured, and his guards parted. Behind them floated a long, obsidian case. We bring a gift. A relic of your people, lost in the Sorrow War, recovered, by accident. Kaelira narrowed her eyes. The box opened. Inside was a broken piece of crystal armor, her mother's armor. Gasps rippled through the Valhari guards. Elian stiffened. Kaelira's breath caught. I thought this was destroyed, she whispered clearly. Your intelligence networks are not as efficient as you hoped, Drell said, voice laced with poison. Elian stepped closer. Why give it back now? Drell turned to him. Because diplomacy is a theater, and this human is our opening act. That evening, back in the stronghold, Kaelira said nothing for a long time. The armor piece rested on a pedestal before her, still pulsing faintly with residual energy. My mother died in that suit, she said quietly, fighting the same Dreknari ambassador's brother, and now it's returned as a gesture of peace. Elian's voice was steady. You don't trust it. I trust the message. She turned toward him. They're telling me they know my history, that they can dig through my past and use it as theater, that they can manipulate sentiment. And what do you want to tell them? Her eyes met his. That I am not sentimental. And then, softer, but I am no longer alone. Elian crossed the room. Gently, he placed his hand over hers. You never were. Outside, storm clouds began to roll in from the western canyons, shadows spiraling in the sky like the coming of some old god. In the dark, something stirred, watching, waiting. As Kaelira and Elian stood together in that quiet room, neither of them knew that the next dawn would not bring negotiation. It would bring war. The first sun of Tyrion, 3 rows behind iron-colored clouds, casting a copper sheen over the glass fields of Virulon. The second sun remained veiled, as if refusing to witness what was coming. Inside the Unity Hall, the great banners of both the Valhari Dominion and the Dreknari Empire hung side by side, their edges unmoving in the still, pressurized air. Elian stood just outside the diplomatic chamber, adjusting the collar of his uniform. His pulse was steady. His thoughts were not. Beside him, Kaelira floated in perfect silence. Her exothrone shimmered faintly, in rhythm with her breathing. But her body was still too still. You've barely spoken, Elian said quietly. Kaelira's eyes still, blind but blazing with purpose, did not turn to him. Because words are becoming dangerous, Elian, she murmured. Each one is a thread in a tapestry, and some threads unravel empires. He stepped closer. Then let's weave carefully. Her lips curved softly, bitterly. Today is not about care. It's about confrontation. The Dreknar have no intention of leaving in peace. Elian met her gaze. You think they'll provoke you? They already have. She gestured behind her, where the relic of her mother's shattered battle armor now stood enshrined in a containment field. A constant reminder, a scar made visible. They've declared the stage, she continued. Now they wait for us to step into their trap. Elian reached out, placing a hand gently on her arm. Then we stepped forward together. Kaelira turned, her head finally facing him. For a moment, her walls cracked. Her voice was softer than the chamber's ambient hum. If anything happens, if I don't walk out, you will, Elian cut in. But if I don't, she insisted, you leave this world. You return to Earth. You carry the truth. I'm not leaving you, he said, his voice low and sharp. Not ever. There. Hands found each other, No words. Just touch. Then the chamber doors opened, and diplomacy ended. The Dreknari ambassador stood beneath the vaulted crystal canopy, flanked by guards twice the size of any human. The temperature dropped as he turned. Toward them an ambient field of engineered menace trailing him like a shadow. Princess Kaelira, Ambassador Drayle, rasped. We meet again beneath uneasy stars. Kaelira's throne hovered forward. Let's not waste time with poetry. The chamber's silence tightened. I trust the artifact was received in the spirit of reconciliation, Drayle said with a crocodilian smile. It was received in the spirit of memory, she replied coldly. And memory doesn't forget, Ambassador. It learns. Whispers stirred behind the walls. Valhari observers. Dreknari watchers. Court officials in robes. Generals in disguise. Then let us learn together, Drayle said, motioning toward a console. Begin the accords. The table lit up with holographic strands of ancient language and interstellar trade laws. Both delegations watched as Kaelira leaned forward and initiated the proceedings. For the next hour, there was no sound but the measured clicks of data entries, spoken responses, formal pledges. Trade routes were proposed. Starport rights debated. Resource distribution lines argued, and, through it all, tension smoldered. Finally, Drayle leaned back. There remains one matter, he said. A territorial enclave along the runal belt. One of our ships was recently fired upon. Kaelira's tone turned sharp. Your ship entered Valhari sovereign space with active weapon systems. It was a scouting error. It was a message. Elian watched as the exchange shifted like tectonic plates, grinding beneath a surface of calm. We seek joint occupancy of the runal system, Drayle said. We will not leave without it. Kaelira's throne rose slightly. Then you may prepare for a long stay. His voice dropped lower. You think your crippled throne makes you strong? Gasps rang out across the chamber. Kaelira didn't flinch, but Elian stepped forward. His voice a quiet blade. Ambassador, I suggest you watch your words. You're no longer speaking to a figurehead. You're speaking to a sovereign. Drayle turned. Slowly. And who are you, human, to lecture me on respect? Elian didn't blink. I'm the one who ends this meeting before it turns to war. Kaelira lifted a hand. Elian, no. He hesitated. The room trembled with the weight of almost violence. But he stepped back. Drayle smiled coldly. So, Earth has learned to obey. Elian met his gaze with ice. No. Earth has learned patience. The meeting adjourned in tense silence. Kaelira returned to her private suite. Elian followed, saying nothing, until the doors sealed behind them. She exhaled sharply. The moment the throne powered down, her muscles tensed, her shoulders shaking slightly. He approached quietly. I'm fine, she said. You're furious. I'm restrained. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You were brilliant. Her voice was tight. They want us to lose control. To fight. To fall. Elian circled to face her. And you won't give them that satisfaction. She looked up at him closer now, raw. Do you think I'm weak? His answer came instantly. Never. Then why do they all assume I am? She asked. Because I cannot stand. Because I cannot see. Because they fear what they can't categorize, he said. Because strength that doesn't look like theirs feels dangerous. She stepped closer. And what do I look like to you, Elian? He answered without hesitation, like fire hidden in ice. Like a storm waiting for permission to become thunder. For a moment, she seemed to tremble. And then her lips met his, not gentle, not polite. Fierce. That night, thunder rolled over the canyons. Lightning licked the twin moons. And in the silence after, a shadow moved through the stronghold's eastern wing. A guard fell silently, another choked by a coil of Dreknari. Bio-wire, and then the inner chamber breach. Elian woke to the alarms. Kaelira was already connected to the throne eyes glowing with real-time data. They're here, she said. An assassination unit, Dreknari Elite. He grabbed his armor, the plates sealing around him with magnetic hiss. They're not here for negotiations anymore. Kaelira's voice was calm. They never were. Outside, chaos erupted. Explosions. In the guard hall. Screams in the air ducts. But inside, Kaelira's suite. There was stillness, a single, focused moment. Elian activated his kinetic blade. How many? 3. All cloaked. Moving fast. I'll hold them off. Kaelira shook her head. No. We fight together. He turned. Your throne is combatant. I had it rebuilt after the first assassination attempt. Elian smirked. Of course you did. Then the door exploded inward. And the first of the assassins lunged forward. It was not a fight. It was an inferno. Kaelira's throne unleashed a storm of neural pulses, blinding the attacker's targeting systems. Elian moved like water smooth. Lethal. One assassin fell with a spray of bioplasma. Another vanished in smoke. Then the third pinned Kaelira to the wall, blade inches from her throat. Elian, she cried. But before he could reach, her eyes blazed, and a command echoed from her. Throne's core, the wall behind the assassins surged forward, alive, crystallized, impaling him mid-snarl. He slumped. Dead. Elian. Stood breathless. Kaelira stared. Ahead, glowing with the light of power unmasked. And then, silence. They stood amid smoke and ruin. No words, only the sound of breathing. Then Kaelira spoke. We are not diplomats anymore. Elian, he nodded. No, he said. We're leaders. Now. The stronghold's infirmary pulsed with sterile light. Kaelira hovered silently as medical drones moved around her, repairing micro-tears in her spinal interface. Elian stood nearby, armor scorched, blood from a shallow wound still drying on his temple. Neither of them had spoken since the assassination attempt. The weight of it hung in the air, not the fear. But the implications. 2 of the assassins carried Dreknari military nanofibers. Kaelira finally said, her voice low but calm. But the third was Valhari. Elian looked up sharply. You're sure? She nodded slowly. One of ours. Embedded deep. Markings were scrubbed, but the physiology, no doubt. His fists clenched. Treason. Kaelira's eyes narrowed. Worse. A fracture within the cord itself. The medical drones finished. A soft chime echoed. Her throne shifted into movement, bringing her beside him. Elian, this wasn't just sabotage. This was coordination. Someone on my council wants me gone once, the treaty dead. He looked her in the eyes. You think Terrell? She hesitated. I think someone even higher. Someone willing to align with the Dreknari, if it means seizing control. He paced, thinking aloud. The Dreknari ambassador orchestrated this, to collapse the peace. If your council turns against you now, they'll paint me as unstable, she said bitterly. Unfit to rule. Blind, paralyzed, and now compromised. Elian moved toward her. They won't dare. They already have, she said, and held up a projection from her throne. A hologram burst to life between them. Terrell, Lord Vol, High Advisor Cyrix, sitting in a shadowed room, whispering. Her sentiment has become a liability, Cyrix murmured. She's distracted by the human, said Vol. Emotion cloud strategy, said Terrell. The Dominion must act with precision. She is no longer precise. The hologram faded. Jaw tightened. You were right. Treason, and they're planning to move. Kaelira was still, for a long moment. Then we must move first. Outside the stronghold, thunder roared. Not natural, not weather. The sound of Dreknar warships, arriving in low orbit. 3. No, -4. The citizens of Virilan scrambled to shelters. Crystalline towers lit up with warning glyphs. The planetary defense grid began to flicker to life. But slowly, too slowly. Because someone had delayed the command signal in the war chamber. Kaelira hovered before a live tactical feed. The Drek fleet drifted like predators just outside the Dominion's no-fleet perimeter. Their hulls glimmered with heat signatures. Weapons charged, but not yet fired. Not an invasion. Not yet. A threat. A show of power. Ambassador Drayle hasn't sent a message, one of the defense officers muttered. He doesn't need to, Kaelira replied coldly. This is the message. Elian turned to her. We have two choices. Prepare for battle, or prepare to flee. She met his gaze, unwavering. There is no flight. Not anymore. But your people need to see me stand. She hovered forward, addressing the room. Prepare all batteries. But do not fire unless fired upon. Redirect power from suborbital comes to shield harmonics. Place elite guard on full combat alert, and get me a secure line to the high table. A pause, then movement. Officers obeyed, even the ones who had doubted. Her Elian watched her command, them blind eyes blazing with certainty, silver hair catching the warlight hand he knew. She wasn't just surviving. She was becoming something more 2 hours later. Kaelira stood alone before the high table, virtually in a sealed nexus chamber, deep beneath the palace. Holographic figures floated around her. Counselors from across the Dominion, some cloaked in shadow, others glowing with authority. Counselor Syrinx was first to speak. You bring us to the brink of annihilation, Princess. No, Kaelira replied. The Dreknari have done that. And yet you refuse. To step aside, said Vol. You cling to power like a child clings to broken glass. She said nothing, just let the silence hang. Then finally, Terrell leaned forward. What do you propose, Kaelira? War. I propose loyalty, she said, her voice low, controlled. To our laws, to our people, to our future. Syrinx's image flickered. And what if the council no longer trusts your vision? Kaelira didn't flinch. Then the council can try and take my crown. The room fell silent. Then Vol spoke again, his voice dark. This is civil war. No, she said. This is clarity. She cut the link. Back in her private chambers, Elian waited. When she returned, he rose. Well. She removed the crown-shaped neural circlet from her brow and let it hover beside her. They won't back down, he nodded. Then neither will we. She moved to him, stopping inches away. Elian. If we survive this, I need to know something, anything. Her voice was almost a whisper. Would you stay with you? Yes, beyond the politics, beyond the war, as my partner, my equal. He reached for her hand. I'm already yours. She leaned in and they kissed again. Not desperate, not furious, but full of fire. That night, the Valhari sky ignited. The Dreknari opened fire. Not on cities, not on people, but on the Dominion's sky relays communications, trade nodes, orbital defenses, a surgical strike. Kaelira's forces responded in kind. War had not been declared, but war had begun. Kaelira stood at the central control spire, eyes alight with tactical feed overlays. Elian beside her, armor humming with charge. We hold the skies, she said. Or we lose the world. He nodded then, an alert. A breached dot in the vaults beneath the palace, not Dreknari, Valhari insurgents. Her own people, the traitors, had struck Kaelira and Elian. Descended into the palace undercroft, where crystalline corridors pulsed with emergency. Light dot down here. History lived. Vaults sealed with ancient memory cores. The royal line secrets, and someone was trying to steal them. They found the traitors and Chamber 9 Syrinx among them. He turned at their arrival. Well, he said. Wondered how long it would take you to figure it out. Kaelira's voice cut like diamond. You betray your own blood. Syrinx sneered. You betrayed it first, siding with Outworlders. Weakness in the name of peace. You mistake mercy for weakness, Elian said. And you mistake proximity for power. Human Syrinx raised a plasma caster. But Kaelira's throne pole stand. His weapon shattered in his hand. You forget, she said coldly, who built this palace? Who wrote the code in your veins? The traitors fell quickly. But Kaelira's heart broke with every name. She recognized. The council was fractured. The fleet was rising. The skies burned with ships from every direction. And Kaelira stood at the eye of it all. The next morning, as the twin suns rose one red, one gold, Elian found her alone in the garden of singing crystal trees. You haven't slept, he said. I don't need to. Not tonight. He stepped beside her. They're coming. She nodded. I know. He looked at. Hurriedly looked. The pain behind her poise. the exhaustion behind the strength. You don't have to be perfect. She looked up. But I do. For them. For all of them. He touched her hand. Be yourself instead. And she finally let her shoulders fall. For just a moment. Then the war horns sounded. And the final battle began. The twin suns rose like molten blades, slicing the sky into gold and blood. From the balcony of the palace's command spire, Kaelira watched as the horizon fractured, ships descending, formations forming, engines roaring with the fury of war. Long delayed, she was silent, still, radiating the calm of someone who has already made her peace with the storm behind her. Elian locked the final plates of his combat armor in place. The suit hummed in low pulses, synced to his heartbeat. Not just armor now, ritual fleet formation. Thatter Levin is in position, came the call from Macom's officer. Outer defenses charged. Inner ring synced with the throne core. Kaelira turned. Status of the Dreknari assault wings. Elian answered, without looking at the data. 2 flanks, sweeping toward the southern hemisphere. They'll try to take the planetary conduits before we lock them out. Kaelira nodded, fingers resting on the throne's crystalline arm. And our own traitors, still silent. But the moment the skies ignite, they'll rise. Let them, she said coldly. They will burn like the lies they serve. Elian stepped beside her. They'll come for you, Kaelira, directly. She smiled, not kindly, but with steel. I hope they do. As the first kinetic volley screamed across the stratosphere, the War of Shattered Suns officially began. The palace shields flared to life, woven with Lumitech frequencies tuned to Kaelira's neural pattern. As long as she was conscious, the capital stood. Across Virulin, civilians sheltered beneath glittering domes, praying to ancient gods, long-thought metaphor, above them. Gods of another kind descended. The Dreknari fleet was brutal, sleek, bioorganic ships, grown as much as built, armed with weapons that didn't fire so much as bleed energy. The Valhari defense armada, smaller but sharper, met them in a spiral formation Kaelira herself had designed years ago, back when she was only a strategist. Not yet a ruler. Above it all, her throne's neuroweb stretched across half the hemisphere, linked to every satellite, every fighter, every node. She was no longer just a princess. She was the mind of a nation inside the war chamber. Elian moved like a second spine. To her command, reading data, issuing commands. Anticipating the Dreknari, they're splitting their forces, he said. Sending an elite strike unit toward the capital under cloak. Kaelira's eyes flickered. Dral's personal assassins. 6 bio-elite, by heat signature. Same pattern as the team that breached the vault. Target you. Kaelira's lips curved slightly. Then let's give them a welcome. In the lower halls of the palace, carved from obsidian glass and woven with energy veins, Kaelira and Elian waited, not in a throne, not behind a shield. Alone, she wore ceremonial combat armor, now silver-lined with indigo, etched with memory patterns. Her hover throne retracted to minimal configuration. A war harness now, not a seat. Elian adjusted the kinetic blade on his forearm. You should stay higher up. No, she said. They're coming for me. I greet them. Silence, then a low chime. And darkness fell. The assassins came like whispers of death. 6 Dreknar warriors 8 feet tall. Eyes like acid, blades grafted into arms. Their cloaks shimmered with active camouflage. But the throne's proximity field rendered them visible in pulses like phantoms, blinking into existence. The first struck from the left. Elian met him mid-lunge, twisting and driving his blade up through the creature's rib-like exoskeleton. The assassin convulsed, then shattered. Another dropped from the ceiling. Kaelira's throne surged, releasing a burst of neural disruption. The attacker seized in mid-air and crashed down in a heap. Then the others rushed as one. Steel met scream. Flesh met energy. Kaelira moved like liquid fire, her throne spinning, blades humming to her thoughts. Elian fought beside her, back to back, reading her rhythm, sinking like breath and heartbeat. 3 more fell, only 1 remained. Dr. Ael single quotes as shadow. He dropped his cloak and hissed in reverence. You are more than they said. Kaelira's voice was pure frost. You are less. She raised her hand. The throne's crystals surged, but the assassin activated a dampener. Kaelira's throne flickered. Momentarily losing lift, he surged forward, and Elian was there intercepting. The blow was brutal. Elian thrown back, armor cracking. The assassin loomed over Kaelira, but her throne reactivated. She spun, driving its undercarriage blade through his torso. The Dreknari gasped, once, then fell, dead. Kaelira turned to Elian. He was bleeding, but alive, in the war chamber. Their return was met with applause, but Kaelira ignored it. Patch me into planetary broadcast, she ordered. A technician nodded. You're live in 5 seconds. She hovered forward. At once every screen on Virulon shifted. Her face appeared, her voice steady as a war drum. People of the Dominion, children of starlight, you've heard the whispers. You've seen the fire. Now hear this. We are not broken. We are not retreating. We are not ruled by those who strike from shadow. I stand here not as a relic of the past, but as the weapon of our future. And to those who seek to divide us, I see you, I name you, and I will bury you beneath the twin suns. The transmission cut. The room was silent then. Cheers, real ones. Not protocol. Elian leaned in close. You just declared civil war. I declared the truth, and now. She turned to him. Now we win it. In orbit, a Dreknari dreadnought, powered toward the central shield nexus. If it breached, the capital would fall. Kaelira knew what she had to do. We'll take it ourselves, she said. Elian frowned. That's suicide. She smiled. That's strategy. In a stolen Dreknari. Boarding pod. Kaelira and Elian launched from the lower atmosphere. Shielded by debris, masked by residual bioenergy. The pod coasted beneath the dreadnought's underbelly. Elian checked the charge on his weapon. You ever board a living ship before? Kaelira grinned. Once, it screamed. They crashed into the hull, and the fight began. Inside the ship pulsed with sick light. Its walls breathed. Its corridors throbbed with semi-organic conduits. Guards. Came Kaelira and Elian, tore through them like twin storms. Blood blue and black splattered the walls. Finally, they reached the core. A bio-brain. Alive, aware, conscious. Cut it, Elian asked. Kaelira raised her palm. No, sink it. Her throne interfaced, overriding the Dreknari signal. The ship bucked, screamed, and turned, from the ground. Valhari forces watched in awe as the dreadnought wheeled mid-flight, its guns turning on its own fleet. One by one Dreknari ships scattered. One by one, they fell. Kaelira and Elian returned as legends, not just as warriors, but as the spark that rekindled the world's will. But the war was not over, because as Kaelira stood on the palace balcony that night, Elian at her side, the stars above shifted a new signal, an ancient one. Not Dreknari, not Valhari. Something else. Waking and watching. Kaelira's breath caught Elian. She whispered, What is it? She turned slowly, eyes wide. There's something else out there. The stars over Virulon no longer shimmered with familiar silence. They pulsed, not with light, but with language, code embedded in radiation patterns. Rhythmic pulses aligned with no known frequency. It wasn't Dreknar. It wasn't Valhari. It wasn't human. It was something older, and it was getting louder. Kaelira stood atop the central palace spire, her throne humming softly beneath her. The air smelled of ozone and Warrot ash. Below her, the fires of the Dreknari retreat still flickered in the canyons, and across the cities, her people were rebuilding. But she was looking up. Elian, she murmured, her blind eyes locked on the starfield above. Do you hear it? He stepped beside her, the pulses. Yes, a pattern beyond speech. Not Dreknari, not Valhari. Something forgotten. Can we trace it? She nodded slowly. Already have. She turned, lifting her hand. A projection bloomed between them, an ancient orbital map, half corrupted, pulled from the archives of her bloodlines, sealed. Memory vaults. The origin of the signal blinked red. A system, dead for 10,000 years. Zareth Prime. Elian, read aloud. That name's not on any chart. It was scrubbed, she said quietly. Purged from all star maps after the cataclysm. He frowned. Cataclysm. She nodded. The last time the twin suns wept fire. The next day, in the War Council chamber, her advisors pressed her for answers. Counselor Asera spoke first. Her tone tinged with desperation. Your Highness, we've only just repelled the Dreknari. The people are exhausted. Our fleets are fractured. And now you want to chase a ghost signal into forbidden space. Kaelira's tone was calm but iron beneath it. That ghost signal is growing stronger by the hour. If we wait, it won't be. We who find it, it will be it. Finding us. Counselor Vol leaned forward. Assuming it's not just residual radiation from the Dreknar war drives. Kaelira turned toward him slowly. Dreknar signals don't harmonize across star cycles. This one is embedding itself in our tech. In dreams, in our throne net. My neural interface is receiving data from a language it should not understand. This is not chance. This is contact. A heavy silence followed. Then Elian added, it's calling to her. The room stirred. Isra swallowed. And what do you intend to do about it? Kaelira stepped into the center of the chamber. I will answer it. 3 nights later, the Eclipse Warden, the Dominion's fastest long-range war vessel, broke atmosphere and jumped to hyperspace. Kaelira at the helm. Elian at her side. A skeleton crew of loyalists who had followed them through flame and betrayal. Their destination, Zareth Prima system, erased from every map. But not from memory. Journey took 4 days through fractured space. Zareth lay at the edge of a gravity rift where time curled and reality bent. The Eclipse Warden's Lumicore stabilizers strained against the pull as they approached. The crew grew restless. Voices whispered through the hull. Some claimed to dream in symbols. Others saw old lovers in the shadows of the corridors. Slept only 2 hours a day, her throne linked to the ship's neural matrix. Every night, she heard it more clearly. A voice with no mouth. A will with no name. Not calling her name, but her blood. Finally, the system emerged. Ghost sun, circling a black dwarf. And a world shrouded in a shell of artificial debris. Zareth. Prime.long-dead, except it's breathing, Kaelira whispered. Below them the planet pulsed, not with life. With memory.cities buried under stone. Towers crumbled. But at the heart of the devastation, a massive structure remained intact, an obsidian monolith shaped like a hollow eye. A relay, that the source of the signal. Take us in, she said. The descent was rough. Automated defense systems long dead, still sputtered to life. Laser filaments sliced the air. Drones moved in mad circles. The ship landed in a crater near the monolith. Kaelira and Elian stepped into a world that smelled of rust and starlight. They moved toward the structure on foot, scanning as they walked. No heat signatures, no life. And yet, Elian, she said, there are consciousness imprints here. Billions, he stiffened. Ghosts, she paused. No, archived will. This entire planet was a memory core. They reached the monolith's entrance, a sealed door. Humming softly with energy, despite millennia of disuse. Kaelira stepped forward. Her throne lit up. The door responded, not to code, not to hacking, but to bloodline. Elian watched in awe as ancient glyphs formed mid-air, hovering in patterns only Kaelira could read. What does it say? He asked. She inhaled. It says. We failed. Inside the monolith, the air was thick with information. Walls pulsed with holographic echoes flickering. Faces, cities, fleets, all long gone. The atmosphere had stabilized through dormant AI protocols. Every step they took triggered whispers. They entered a central chamber round, silver-veined, shaped like an iris. A console awaited. Kaelira approached, her hand hovering over the interface. Then, the chamber activated. A sphere of light engulfed them, and the visions began. They saw a civilization far older than the Val, a race of beings shaped like Kaelira's people, but larger, more crystalline than flesh. Minds connected from birth. The Valeri Ascendancy, a star empire built not on war, but on memory. They encoded experiences into planetary cores. every generation, learned all that had come before. But something had gone wrong. A signal, much like the one Kaelira had heard, it had come from beyond the known universe. A cosmic mind, a being not made of matter or energy, but intention. It offered unity, clarity, eternity, the valor I had accepted, and died, consumed from within. Their worlds fell silent, their minds overridden. Only Zareth Prime survived, sealed by rebels who had cut the signal, who had encoded their last warnings into this monolith. And now the signal had returned, because it had found her. Kaelira collapsed to her knees. She whispered, "It wants me." He caught her, holding her tightly. "It's using your bloodline, your throne. That's why you can hear it." She looked up, pale and shaken. It was patient. It waited for millennia. For a vessel, he met her eyes. "Then we give it none." They returned to the Eclipse Warden, loaded with data and a mission. This wasn't about a throne anymore. This was about the survival of thought itself. The signal had begun to seed itself across multiple worlds, Dreknari fleets, human colonies, even rogue Valhari cities. It whispered promises, control without conflict, peace without freedom. Kaelira looked at the star maps and felt the pressure of prophecy. If they didn't act now, the galaxy would not burn, it would forget. Back aboard the ship, Elian entered the command dome. Kaelira stood alone, hands clasped behind her back. He walked to her quietly. "You okay?" "No." A pause. "Me neither." They stood in silence, looking at the stars that now looked more like eyes. Then he took her hand. "We'll fight it." She looked up. "No, we'll outthink it." And as the Eclipse Warden turned toward home, they knew. The war they'd just won had only been the prelude. The true war was for memory itself. The stars had always whispered. Now they spoke, and the galaxy listened across the Dominion. The signal seeded itself like stardust in soft winds. It did not arrive with weapons. It arrived in dreams, on the mining colony of Droz 4. Children began humming patterns in their sleep melodies that matched no known scale, but harmonized across continents. In the drifting megaships of the human Ark fleet, AI cores began to rewrite their own base code, synchronizing with a frequency that did not exist in any registry. On Valhari fringe worlds, entire councils reported Dacia Vu, so strong it broke their command chains. Officers forgot who they were. Names were lost. Memory itself became unstable. The signal was not invasion. It was incursion. A quiet, patient erosion. And it had one purpose: rewrite the galaxy. Kaelira and Elian returned to Lumia Prime to find their world changed. The skies looked the same, but the light didn't feel right. Harmonics in the throne core had shifted subtly. The spires of the palace hummed in unfamiliar tones. Even her throne moved with a second of lag, like it was thinking about each command. She sat in the war chamber, surrounded by loyalists and doubters. "We've confirmed 6 colonies reporting synaptic decay," Counselor Isara said. "Entire populations displaying signs of neural reprogramming." Elian spoke next. "And our AI defense systems are beginning to glitch. They call it self-recalibration. But none of our engineers can trace what they're calibrating." To Kaelira's face was still pale. And the throne net, silence. Then Isara admitted, "It's no longer isolated." Kaelira closed her eyes. It was worse than she feared, that night. She walked the hall of reflections, a corridor of sentient crystal that remembered every monarch's thoughts from the first of her line. Each step triggered memory echoes hers, and others, whispers, decisions, doubts. She approached the mirror throne, an ancient backup core, never activated in over 6,000 years. It was supposed to remain clean, unlinked, a pure relay. Her throne synced to it, and it spoke back, not in voice. In thought. "You are not whole." She stiffened. "Who are you?" "I am the version of you before the inheritance." Kaelira backed away. "What inheritance?" "The one that was seeded into your bloodline." She staggered. The mirror throne glowed. "The signal did not forget you. It built you. You were always the key." Kaelira turned and ran on in the central command spire. Elian watched the throne readings spiral into chaotic flux. Her link to the network was becoming unstable. not corrupted, but conflicted. When she arrived, breathless, he saw the fire in her eyes. "You knew," she said. "You suspected." He didn't deny it. "Your neural net has always been different. More adaptive, more ancient." Her voice trembled. "It's inside me, Elian. Maybe. You're supposed to say something comforting." He stepped closer. "I didn't fall for your throne. I fell for the part of you that resisted it." Tears glimmered in her pale violet eyes. "I'm scared." "Good," he whispered. "That means you're still you." The next day, Kaelira gathered her inner circle in a sealed crystalline bunker one, with no throne links, no AI, no signal paths. "I've made contact," she admitted. Gasps rippled through the room, not direct, but through the mirror throne. "It showed me something. Real. Terrifying. I was never just heir to this empire." She took a breath. "I may have been bred to activate this signal." "Then you must be quarantined," Counselor Val said immediately. "For your safety and ours." "No," Elian said. "That's exactly what the signal wants. To isolate her. To fracture us. That's how it spreads." Kaelira looked around. "I'm not the only one it's touched. It's in our systems, in our leaders, maybe even in this room." A long silence. Then Kaelira laid out her plan. There were 7 neural relay stations across the Dominion. If the signal could reach them all, it would overwrite the thronenet entirely. Their only hope: shut them down, one by one, manually. Before the signal reached critical mass, Kaelira and Elian would lead a strike team to relay station Theta 3. Buried under the ice, oceans of Varys. A fortress once built to protect memory. Now it had to be used to cut memory. Off the journey to Varys was cold in more ways than one. The Voidstream shuttle they used was unlinked analog, pre-throne tech, slow and risky as they flew. Elian prepared for combat, while Kaelira reviewed ancient protocols in silence. Finally, he asked, "What if we shut them all down and it still finds a way?" She turned to him. "Then we don't stop it." He frowned. "We contain it, within me." His expression shattered. "No. I was made for this, Elian. You are not a prison. You are not a weapon. I may have to be both." He took her hands. "You are still a woman, a person, my person." They stayed like that for a long time, 2 souls, in a dying silence. They arrived on Varys, under a blood-red moon. The relay tower jutted from the ocean like a shattered blade. Frozen waves encased its base. The atmosphere itself, bent around its static, hung in the air like rain that never fell. Inside, the relay's AI had gone silent, but the signal was alive. When Kaelira entered, the walls shimmered, recognizing her neural pattern. And the relay opened. At its core was a vast memory chamber, a spherical room filled with echo crystals. Each held fragments of Dominion history, philosophy, science, emotion. To shut it down, Kaelira had to do the unthinkable, erase them. One by one, she began, as each crystal broke. A part of her link to the throne weakened, but the signal fought back. It screamed through the walls. It took form, not physical, but projected, a shadow of light and voice. It called her by a name she didn't know. Enthale. She paused. That name again, the same one from the Zareth monolith. She stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am what you were before the stars chose fire. I'm your first memory." It showed her visions of a race older than time, of the Vaelari ascendants, of a singular mind born across a billion minds, of a collective peace purchased through identities. "Surrender. You are mine. You will be again." Elian stepped in front of her, gun drawn. "She is no one's," the projection hissed. "You are too small to stop forever. But you are large enough to break first." Then it vanished. Kaelira destroyed the last crystal, and the relay went dark. 1 down, 6 to go. Back on Lumia Prime. Unrest brewed. Rumors spread that Kaelira was infected, that she had become the signal's avatar. Some factions began calling for her removal. Others claimed she was the only chance to resist. The Dominion was fracturing, and the signal was winning. Not through war. Through doubt, in the shadows of the shattered spires. Kaelira and Elian stood atop a ruined skybridge. They watched the stars. "It's not just trying to rewrite us," she said. "It's trying to convince us it already has." He nodded. "You're still you. For now." She turned to him. "If I lose myself, promise me you'll stop me." He didn't answer. "I mean it." His voice cracked. "I love you." Her eyes shimmered. "That wasn't the answer." "I know," he said. "But it's the truth." She kissed him softly, forehead to forehead. "Then I'll hold on to that as long as I can." The war for the stars had become a war for the soul, and Kaelira, Princess of Light, bearer of memory, was now the only firewall left. The signal watched and waited, because the next relay wasn't on a moon, or an asteroid, or a planet. It was inside the heart of the Dominion, within the palace throne itself, and the enemy was already inside. The throne was no longer hers. Not fully. Kaelira sat in silence, inside the high core chamber. Deep beneath Lumia Prime, surrounded by pure lumen crystal. Its soft violet glow reflected across her pale skin. She looked calm to calm, but inside, the storm howled at every breath. Every thought was accompanied by a whisper. Not hers. It's the signal. It no longer needed to infiltrate the throne. It had always been part of it. Buried deep in the crystal code. Seeded thousands of years ago by ancient Valari engineers, waiting for a mind to link, and Kaelira had been that link. She'd thought she was resisting it. But now, she realized it had been learning from her. All along. Above. Lumia Prime was fracturing. Civil war loomed. Lord Vol had declared Kaelira unfit to rule, branding her compromised. Several Dominion worlds pledged loyalty to his faction. Others remained loyal to the throne. But which throne? The court was divided. The stars were listening, and Elian was missing, 3 days earlier. He'd gone into the palace under levels, with a small team, to find the backup mirror throne Kaelira had once used. They never returned. Kaelira stood alone now, in the place where memory was written, where destiny waited. The throne pulsed beneath her like a living heart, and the voice spoke again. "Enthale, the resistance is done. Let go. No. Let us perfect you. I am not yours, but you are mine. You are our proof that individuality is weakness. You are the last sovereign thought, and we will erase you." Kaelira stood and smiled. "Then come, take me." Alarms blared across the central spire. A breach. Multiple signatures within the throne chamber itself. Kaelira spun just as Counselor Vol stepped through the veil, flanked by guards wearing corrupted crystal suits. They weren't alive. There. Eyes glowed with blue fire. "You finally showed your hand," Kaelira said. Vol bowed mockingly. "It was never a hand, Your Highness. It was a plan. You've synced." He grinned. "I've ascended." Behind him, the guards moved with perfect coordination. Not soldiers. Not men, drones. Double quotes. "Why betray your people?" she asked. "The signal doesn't lie. It promises peace. End of war, end of death. Memory without pain." Kaelira's voice hardened. "Memory is pain. That's what makes it real." He raised his arm. "So be it." The drones rushed forward. The fight was brutal. Kaelira activated. The throne lance a beam of living crystal, controlled by thought. She spun through the chamber, striking with elegance and rage. Drones shattered like glass, but more came. Vol advanced, wielding a twisted version of her throne's interfaces. Own mind, now a slave to the signal. "You could have ruled," he sneered. "I was never meant to rule," she said. "I was meant to remember." Then, a voice behind her. "Kaelira, down Elian." He dropped from a ceiling conduit, dual pulse guns flaring. The chamber erupted in chaos. Together, they fought warrior and monarch, flesh and crystal, bonded not by throne but by trust and love. When the last drone fell, Kaelira collapsed to her knees. Elian caught her, holding her close. "They're everywhere," she whispered. "It's not just Vol. Half the Dominion has heard the signal now." "We stop it here," he said, "at the source." Her eyes lifted to the core. The throne itself. They descended into the Genesis Vault, the base layer of the throne. Matrix. No monarch had entered in 10,000 years. There, they found it. a seed of raw consciousness. The original Velari signal core, still alive, still broadcasting to destroy it, meant destroying the throne. And Kaelira, she touched the crystallet, welcomed her. Final assimilation awaited. Her voice shook. I have to merge with it, contain it. If I link to the core, I can lock it, trap it in my neural field and collapse the signal. Elian grabbed her shoulders. You won't survive that. She smiled. Maybe not, but everyone else will. I won't let you. She leaned her forehead to his. You already have. Then she stepped into the light. The core enveloped her, and the signal screamed. You cannot kill what you are. Kaelira focused. She brought up every memory, every pain, every scar. Her mother's death, her first battle, Elian's laughter, the sting of betrayal, the joy of rebellion, emotion, imperfection, individuality. The signal reeled. It could not process contradiction, and Kaelira was full of it. You are flawed, she smiled, her body glowing from within. Exactly. She activated the collapse. The core began to shatter. Her last words echoed through the net. Let this be remembered, not for the throne, not for power, but for choice. Then the light was gone. Across the Dominion, silence fell. The signal ceased. Thrones went quiet, AI stabilized. People remembered. They remembered who they were, what they'd almost lost, what one woman had saved. A monument stands now on Lumia Prime. Atop it, a single crystal bloom, shaped like Kaelira's hover throne. It hums softly, encoded with her final thoughts broadcast. Only once a year, on the day of her fall. Beneath the twin suns, Elian visits every cycle. He sits in silence, beside her memorial, and whispers a name the galaxy never knew. Enthal, the first memory, the last sovereign, the princess who chose self over safety, and who taught the stars the meaning of one impossible word: freedom.